Now, one of the things that people wanted to look at before was this idea of how you can actually use the complex profile tool to do with columns as well as beams and walls. And of course, it doesn't have to necessarily look the way you think a column might look. So what I've done is created here this element here, which is in fact a casing in a bathroom. So if we marquee that area and have a look at that. You can see that we've got our bathroom detailing there, and that element there is complex profile. And if we open it, again, right-click, get it selected complex profile. It's a very simple complex profile in that we've got here something which I've called the carcassing air gap, because that's where the framing goes, and tile on the outside, and then we've got some plasterboard. Now, we could, in fact, add to this complex profile some timber framing, just to explain it. So if we go to the fill tool and we pick here carcassing timber. Now, before I actually pick it, you'll see that my materials don't look anything like the ones that Archicad has at the box. They are, in fact, very similar. I've just renamed them all. And I've named them using the idea of trades. So I've got trades which are for masonry, for structure, steel and such like, carcassing, roofing, etc., all the way through. And what I've done is I've set a system up which follows one of the British standards that we use here in the UK, and I then name everything, all the parameters that I use, all using the same system. So I only have to remember one system, and it gives me a lot of useful information and data. So I'm going to pick carcassing timber, and we're going to just put something in like that. And that, I think it would look better if I had a solid line around it. And we can do the same over here. And the same there. Just put a line around there. If you want to be tidy, we could pull this back there, and cut it there. That's there. So having done your very simple 2D editing, you save it. And the reason that isn't showing is because it's cut by something. But if we go back to a complex column, you see that the framing has appeared. Now, of course, that's a profile that fits in this area. If we actually go back to it, I can't remember. Yeah, I've allowed it to stretch. And that then no, that doesn't allow me to stretch in that way. Sorry, trying to do too many complicated things on the fly is the answer, I think. But at least that shows you then what you've done there with a complex profile, and that's a column. Although it doesn't look like a structural column at all, but it's using the column. So you don't have to use things for what they are called. You can use them for whatever you like, as long as it works for you. And and there again, you'll see that we can actually embed data in that. I'll come back to that later. And So what we actually have done then is, sorry, I don't want to go back to that one there. Here, the floor wall junction. We've got our data embedded in our various 3D elements. We've drawn those 3D elements using complex profiles. And we can therefore pick up the information to show as drawing notes. And what that means is that everything is completely linked. So that drawing note there has not been typed, and therefore you can't make a mistake, or if you do make a mistake, it's in here and you can correct it. And of course, every time that floor is used in this project, or indeed in any other project, the same data is carried through. So the data is carried into the favorite, or if you copy it from one project to another, it carries the data with it as well. Now let's look at the data again, because there's two other things that we can do to access the data. One is that you actually go to the normal window here, and you'll see down the bottom here there's something called IFC properties. You can get to this in here, but it's not really much better than the tags and categories. It's okay if you want to change just one little thing, but if you want to do a major edit, it's not very useful. You can, however, go to Manage IFC Properties, and you'll then see that you've got a slightly more user-friendly thing, and you can start to drag the columns around so they give you a bit more scope. But again, what it doesn't do is it doesn't wrap, so you are ending up with stuff running off the end. So it doesn't really make it very useful for editing long text strings. Interestingly, the text string is limited at the moment to, I think it's 225 characters, which is partly why I've got several different elements so that I can actually put different things in different fields. So all of that data is accessible from there. But of course the other place it's accessible from is interactive schedules. And that's the real power of this, because essentially an interactive schedule allows you to edit this stuff just like you're in a spreadsheet. So if we click here to that one, so that what Archicad has just done, if we look at the scheme settings up here, I've created a schedule called Masonry. The naming of it is using the same trade section headings. So again, I've only got one thing to remember. I know F is Masonry, that's fine. So what I've done is I've said I want Archicad to look for everything in the model that has F Masonry embedded in it. Having found all of that, that's your criteria. What you then do is you say, I now want you to list everything that I tell you here, which are all the fields. This is the data field. So what I'm telling it to list in this order is I want the trade, I want the full element ID, I want the drawing note, the general description, and the workmanship note. And there is all of that there. This element here, you see, has been created as a subhead, which is just a matter of ticking a box. So that makes it look quite nice. But here, all of a sudden, you can get into it. And as you can see, you can edit this, any part of it you like, really easily. And the key thing, of course, is you can copy-paste from somewhere else. So you may have some information from a manufacturer, you may have specification information from elsewhere in the office. That's no problem at all. You just copy-paste this in exactly the same way as you would anything else. That data change then applies to everything with that reference number. So what I'm doing is I'm using the Archicad ID as a specification reference number. And I'm not allowing Archicad to give me a new ID for everything I draw. So everything I draw in that way will actually end up with this data. And in fact, there's probably quite a few walls that have that ID. So that really is the power of that. And of course, if we then actually look at the big specification for the whole job, which will now take a few seconds to run, because what I'm now doing is I've told Archicad to look at everything in the whole model and actually give me all of the data that I've shown in a small section here, but for every trade that I've entered in for the whole model. And of course the benefit of that is that if I've drawn something in 3D, it's in the specification. So you can see here that we've actually got, get rid of that, make it bigger. We've even got a cost column. That's actually just for the contractor to fill in. But I mean, you know, one could put your own costs in there and start to add it up. You know, the addition functions in the Archicad are a bit crude, but there is a possibility, but that's not what it's there for. And as you can see, this actually is listed. These are all the alteration items. We then get down, we've got groundwork, masonry, steelwork, carpentry, the whole list of everything. So if I've drawn it, it appears in here. And there are various other techniques that we can use to look at where perhaps you haven't put the right trade heading in. You can basically reverse the schedule and you can look for things that have got the wrong trade heading or something like that. So you can check the whole of your model. But the great thing about this is that that gives you your specification. And when we actually look at specification here, this is actually being placed on a multi-page layout. So it's just an A4 layout sheet with a specific, let's make it a bit bigger so that you can all see it. So it's just an A4 layout sheet, and there is everything you need. You can send that to your builder. You've got your cost column, and all of this is exactly as you've drawn it in the model. And if you edit anything in the model, you change the specification, change the description, change what you want to call it on the drawing note, this of course updates all at the same time. So I think that's really the main thing I wanted to just give an overview today, Eric. Obviously we can now go for follow-up questions, but of course this is, you know, this did take us 6 sessions to talk through originally, so it's a fairly deep subject, but the power that is actually possible really is phenomenal. So, you know, if you like the look of it, go and experiment for yourself.